Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a topic that comes up so often for people navigating loss, really significant loss.
Yeah, it's that really intense wave of anxiety that can just wash over you during grief.
Exactly. And we're diving into some source material shared by a listener, specifically some excerpts from a piece called Grief and Anxiety. Calming your mind when logic doesn't work.
hmm So our plan really is to unpack what this piece says about why anxiety shows up so strongly in grief.
Especially when, your usual ways of thinking, your logic just feels broken, doesn't work.
Right. And we want to pull out the useful ideas, the practical strategies it offers for finding maybe some relief, some stability.
And it starts with a pretty striking idea, doesn't it?
It really does. This idea that anxiety isn't actually always a good predictor of, well, of real danger. Sometimes it's just not there when things actually go wrong.
Yeah, the author's own story really hits that home. They talk about feeling anxiety ramp up before a loss, worrying about everyday stuff. But then, during the actual trauma, their partner drowning, they felt this, surprising calm.
Wow.
And then after the loss, that's when the anxiety just skyrocketed, even though it clearly hadn't helped prevent anything.
It really sets up this paradox, right? Anxiety feels like it should be keeping us safe, but experience, especially after a huge loss, often shows it's, well, the piece calls it patently ineffective at managing actual risk.
Yeah, patently ineffective. That really jumped out. So this piece digs into that contradiction.
Okay, so let's get into that. The source makes it clear grief has this huge impact, mind and body, makes anxiety a huge issue, it says, whether it's new for you or something you've dealt with before.
Absolutely. And it describes this feeling, which I think many people will recognize. After a big loss, the world just feels incredibly unsafe.
Yeah, like you need constant vigilance. You're always scanning, looking for warning signs, trying to stop anything else bad from happening, rehearsing awful scenarios in your head.
And that point about logic failing, trying to tell yourself, oh, that's highly unlikely, it just falls flat, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Because the highly unlikely thing already happened to you. You've lived the unlikely, as the piece puts it. So statistical comfort doesn't work anymore.
That feels like such a key insight. And this constant fear, this attempt to create safety through hypervigilance, it actually backfires.
Right. The author says it creates a small, hard, painful life. Calls it an exquisite torture chamber.
Oof, yeah.
And you get stuck on this incessant hamster wheel. Fear messes with your sleep. A lack of sleep ramps up the anxiety. It just feeds itself.
And again, the piece insists.
Right.
This intense anxiety is patently ineffective. Most fears don't come true, and it can be, like the author's story showed, conspicuously absent in real emergencies.
So the big question then is, if it's not actually making us safer, why does the brain do this? Why does it feel so vital?
Okay, yeah, let's get into the why. The source talks about the brain as this, brilliant survival mechanism.
And one key thing it does is run scenarios safely in your mind. It's like a simulator, right? Assessing risk, planning, solving problems without actual physical danger.
Like practice runs. Makes sense.
Exactly. But after trauma, after a huge loss, that system goes, well, the piece says it gets on tilt.
On tilt, I like that.
Yeah. The brain and nervous system start triggering the full fight or flight response, the stress hormones, everything not just from real danger, but from imagined danger, thoughts.
And that's the problem. Because with imagined danger, there's nothing to actually run from or fight.
Precisely. So the hormones get released, but there's no physical action to burn them off, so they just hang around.
And the brain feels that arousal, that physical stress, and thinks, oh, still danger.
Right. So what does it do? It imagines more danger, which triggers more hormones, and you're stuck.
It's a vicious cycle. The piece uses that analogy of a dog chewing at a hot spot.
Yeah, the fear thoughts create a physical feeling that then fuels more fear thoughts, round and round.
That explains so clearly why you can't talk yourself out of anxiety when you're deep in it. Logic just doesn't reach that part of the brain.
And why it feels like you will never run out of terrible problems to solve because your mind is just generating them constantly.
Okay, so if the scenario running isn't really about preparing for danger in that moment, what's the underlying drive? What's the anxiety actually looking for?
According to this piece, what it's desperately searching for is proof of safety, physical or emotional security.
So it runs scenarios of not being safe as a twisted way to try and find safety within them. That's counterintuitive.
It really is. But the catch is, after a massive loss, the whole idea of safety feels broken. Sketchy, the author calls it.
Right. Those old comforts, it probably won't happen, or even constantly checking on people. They don't give you that lasting, secure feeling anymore.
Because the world's ordinary safety already failed you in a huge way.
And the piece is really firm on this. Rehearsing disaster, constantly checking.
Yeah.
It will not create a lasting sense of safety. It might give a tiny blip of relief, maybe, but it doesn't build anything solid.
Okay, so knowing that, what can we do? When you're right in the middle of an anxiety spike, that wave hits. What does the source suggest?
Well, first, it says forget logic in that moment. It's biological. You've got to soothe the nervous system directly.
Okay. So?
The main technique, simple but powerful, is changing your breathing. Specifically, making your exhale longer than your inhale.
Just lengthening the exhale.
Yeah, it
Yes.
sounds almost too something later. But the explanation is that a longer exhale signals to your nervous system, okay, danger's past, you can calm down. It helps shut down the flood of stress hormones.
And you can do it anywhere, anytime, no equipment needed.
Exactly. It helps bring you back to the present moment, to what is,
Yeah.
instead of being lost in that future fear fantasy.
That makes sense.
The piece also talks about tending the organism. I like that phrase.
Food the organism. Okay.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that anxiety often gets worse when your basic physical needs aren't met. You're exhausted, hungry, dehydrated, stressed out.
Ah, so the anxiety might be a signal that your body needs something.
Exactly. So seeing it that way, as a cue to maybe get some sleep, eat something decent, rest, maybe gentle movement, that care itself can help lower the anxiety. It's treating the system, not just the symptom or the fear thought.
Got it. So those are tools for the heat of the moment, the active anxiety. But what about longer-term shifts? Does the source talk about changing the overall pattern?
Yes, definitely. Strategies to reduce how often and how intensely the anxiety hits, but it takes practice. It emphasizes that.
Okay, what are they?
It breaks it down into about 3 main things.
Mm-hmm.
Building self-trust, using your imagination differently, and finding neutrality.
All right. Self-trust first. How does that work in this context?
Well, it addresses that problem of trying to mentally cover every single what if, trying to pre-solve every possible disaster.
Like the example it gives of the client worrying about her house falling apart after her husband died.
Exactly that. The heating failing, the smoke detectors, and solving one worry just meant another popped up. You can't win that game.
Right. You never run out of potential disaster scenarios.
So the alternative it suggests is a big shift. Focusing on trusting yourself to handle things. Not pre-solving everything, but cultivating a core belief.
Like what kind of belief?
Something like a blanket statement. I trust myself to handle problems that come up. And if I hit something I don't know how to solve, I trust myself to ask for help.
Okay, that sounds hard. Especially after a loss where maybe you feel like you failed or your judgment wasn't good enough.
Oh, for sure. The author totally gets that building self-trust is tough then.
Yeah.
But the point is, beating yourself up or staying hyper-vigilant out of fear doesn't actually make you more capable. It just wears you down.
Right. A calm mind and a well-rested body, that's what helps you deal with actual problems when they arise, not the endless imaginary ones.
Yeah. Practical things like locking doors, checking alarms, fine, sensible. But don't live inside the fear.
Okay, so self-trust is one pillar. What was the second? Using imagination differently.
Right. And this tackles that whole thoughts create reality idea head on. The piece calls that patently untrue and so cruel to the grieving heart.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Your thoughts didn't cause the bad thing to happen, and worrying yourself sick won't magically prevent future bad things.
No amount of magical thinking gives you control. But what your thoughts can influence is how you feel inside, your internal state.
Oh, okay.
So the suggestion is your brain's imagination is already running wild, right? Usually with disaster scenarios when you're anxious.
It's default mode.
So harness that power, consciously use your imagination to visualize the best possible outcome instead.
Not to try and make it happen externally.
No, not like manifesting, but to create a different feeling inside yourself, to cultivate, as the piece says, an internal state of calm and hopeful, if mild, optimism.
Interesting. So you're influencing your internal reality, which you can control, rather than the external one, which you often can't.
Precisely. And the third part of this longer-term shift.
Finding the middle ground. Neutrality.
This starts by accepting that life isn't guaranteed safe. Like, that's just reality. Uncertainty is baked in.
Okay. So if you can't guarantee safety, what's the goal?
Aim for neutrality, which the piece describes as a kind of alert calm.
Alert calm. Tell me more.
It's seeing the present moment for exactly what it is, without embellishment or future fantasy. Not denying risks, but not getting lost in fearful projections either.
Kind of like stepping back from the fear narrative.
Yeah, it connects to that idea that anxiety is using your imagination to create a future you do not want. So aiming for neutral is about disengaging from that future tripping. It's a much more stable place than fear.
Okay, that makes sense. Self-trust, using imagination for calm, aiming for neutrality. Then the piece seems to shift again, doesn't it, towards something deeper?
Yeah, it moves beyond just managing the fear itself to asking, what do you actually need right now underneath all that anxiety?
And it talks about the shame that often comes with anxiety, how pretending you're not afraid just doesn't work, makes things feel wonky.
Right. And it offers acknowledgement as the most powerful medicine.
Yeah.
Just stating the fear honestly to yourself.
Like saying, okay, I feel really unsafe right now, or wow, I'm terrified my dog will die.
Exactly. Paradoxically, just naming it, telling the truth about it, can loosen its grip a bit.
Why? How does that help?
Because telling the truth lets you relax just enough to ask that really crucial question. Okay, so what do I need in this moment? What's the need under this fear?
And what kind of needs might be under there?
The piece gives examples. Maybe you need reassurance or comfort, connection, stability. Maybe you literally just need a nap. Or maybe you need real information about something specific.
Okay, so you identify the need, then what?
Then you try to find more effective ways to meet that need than just spinning in worry or checking behaviors.
So instead of just worrying about being alone, you might actually reach out and ask a friend for comfort.
Yes. Or instead of endlessly Googling symptoms, you get reliable information from a trusted source. Or you recognize the anxiety spike as your body screaming for rest, and you actually go take that nap.
It reminds me of that analogy in The Source. It's better to put shoes on your feet than to cover the whole world in leather.
Yes, exactly. You can't control the whole world to make it perfectly safe.
So safety, in this view, isn't about fixing the external world.
No. The piece argues it resides solely in self-advocacy, listening to your own needs beneath the fear, and responding to those needs kindly and effectively.
You couldn't prevent the loss. Safety now is internal. It's how you care for yourself and how you imagine the world.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive has really walked us through understanding anxiety and grief, why it's there, why it feels so powerful, even if it's ineffective for prediction.
Yeah, looking at the brain's role, those short-term soothing techniques like breathing, and then these longer-term shifts towards self-trust, imagination, neutrality.
And finally, getting underneath the fear to ask, what do I really need?
It's a lot to think about. As we wrap up, the source leaves us with some really good questions to maybe ponder, for yourself.
Like, are there patterns to your anxiety? When does it tend to show up more? What are your own early warning signs, maybe signs that point to a physical need like hunger or fatigue?
Yeah, and when you feel that specific anxiety bubbling up about something, can you pause and ask, okay, what's the real need under this fear?
And then what's a better way to meet that need than just worrying or checking again?
And maybe the biggest one, what would kindness towards yourself look like right now in how you respond to this anxiety?
That feels central. The piece really ends on that note, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
Approach these anxious parts with love, with respect. It's understandable. It's normal in grief.
Yeah. Commit to caring for yourself, asking what you need, being kind. It brings to mind that quote, I think it's Sharon Salzberg.
Yes, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection.
A powerful reminder to end on.